Hello and welcome to another episode of Inside the Huddle. Today is Sunday, February 15th. This is episode 96 of the Inside the Huddle podcast. Thank you as always for joining us. Make sure to please like and subscribe here on YouTube. Another week, another podcast for both of our teams. We're about a month into the offseason, but now for all 32 NFL teams, we've officially hit the offseason. Last week, it was completed as the Super Bowl 60 champions are the Seattle Seahawks. 29-13 dominated the New England Patriots. So the 2025 season is officially in the books. And now we look ahead to 2026. First episode of the offseason. Lots of content to come here in the offseason. So DiMari, how's it going? We've hit the offseason and now we get set for everything that's going to take place between now, training camp, preseason, and before you know it, we'll be back at week 1 in September and getting ready for another season. So how's it going, man?
Yeah, I'm good. Kind of been a rough week. You know, you're officially in NFL offseason for all 32 teams when you are fighting sleep trying to watch NBA All-Star break. So there's nothing like offseason as an introduction to that. But been a pretty good week so far. We got some pretty good news, some more news than probably we both expected coming out of the NFL so far. And if you are one like myself, and I'm assuming you as well, that really eyes and pays attention to that schedule for the NFL, obviously during the offseason, we got the combine coming up pretty soon. Guys can start getting franchise tags. We got a few names floating around that might see a franchise tag. George Pickens being one of them. So yeah, we might not see it being played inside the lines necessarily, but football's a year round. It's just a slower period. But hey, like you said, next thing you know, 30 to 31 weeks from now, we will be back watching NFL on TV. Some meaningful football, but we just got to get through this stretch of months.
Yeah, I agree. And you're spot on with the 35 or 365 days a year, rather, league. There's always something going on in the NFL, and there's a lot that's going to start to take place here. These first couple of weeks here in February, a little bit slow, but we got the combine coming up 2 weeks from tomorrow. Shortly after that, we're less than a month out. Beginning early March, we got the free agency starting, and then we'll have the draft late in April. And after the draft, things really start to ramp up a bit because you'll have OTAs, you'll have rookie mini camps, you'll have mandatory mini camp. You'll start to kind of see rosters really take shape, get a better understanding of where teams are at. And then, the next dead period, I guess, is that kind of 40-day period between training camp or mini camp and training camp from June all the way until the end of July. But once training camp begins, you hit the ground running and you get ready for the 2026 season. So ready to tackle another offseason. And like you said, we got some pretty good topics lined up this week to open up the offseason here on the podcast. We'll start today talking some quarterbacks. We'll talk about Derek Carr. We'll dive into him first. We'll get into the Raiders hiring Klint Kubiak, what that means for them, what's next for the Raiders. We'll also dive into a little bit on Maxx Crosby and his situation as his future in Vegas remains unknown. We'll dive into the James Pierce situation and also discuss a little bit more about some other quarterbacks a little bit later on. But we'll start with Derek Carr. After taking a year off and stepping away from the game following the 2024 season where he had the labral tear and some rotator cuff damage, severe rotator cuff damage, we come into the 2026 offseason and we hear that he's interested in returning. So, DiMari, what's your thoughts on Carr and the news that he's interested in making an NFL comeback? If he does, he'll be 35 years old. It'll be his 12th season in the NFL after taking a year away. The former Raider and Saint looking to come back for another year. What are your thoughts?
I think it's a good decision. I know from a lot of teams, and we'll probably get into some landing spots a little later on. A lot of teams, you kind of look into it and you're like, man, we can't trust the guy coming off of shoulder issues to lead our team. Like, who knows how he's going to be when he comes back. But this is kind of the year of the bridge quarterback, if we're being honest. I mean, there's a few teams we're looking at, the Chiefs, the Colts, for instance, that have starting quarterbacks. Obviously, that's going to be dealing with injury throughout the season, may miss majority of the season. A few other teams that might be moving on from their quarterbacks and who won't like anybody in the draft and need a bridge. So I think this is a good opportunity for Derek Carr to kind of come back, and he's not necessarily washed. So we're not getting some guy like we're not going to see Phillip Rivers. At least I hope we're not going to see a Phillip Rivers type thing off the couch where this guy is extremely washed, can't push the ball down the field. I mean, those 10 games that Derek Carr played in 24, 15 touchdowns, 5 interceptions, pretty efficient if you ask me. Yes, it was 10 games. The numbers could have been a little better, but it's not like he was stinking up the place. So I think for a handful of teams that's looking at the draft, obviously teams are in the draft process at the moment and might not be too attracted to a quarterback right now, either first round, mid round, late, whatever the case is. A veteran quarterback that is pretty solid. He'll be a great fit for a team that's just looking to kind of tank into next year, if you want to call it a tank.
Yeah, and he's just another one of these quarterbacks that you can kind of throw into the mix here. It's funny. We'll probably talk about throughout the offseason about 30 different names of various quarterbacks from draft, from free agency to trades to retirement that we'll discuss potentially going to some of these different teams. Now, I wanted to play this clip here, and then we could dive more into more on Derek Carr after this. But this clip was interesting on some of the criteria that his next team needs to have. And by this clip, you could potentially rule out a few different teams. So here was Derek Carr on his podcast with his brother, David Carr, called Homegrown, about his return to the NFL, and actually also confirming that the reports are true that he wants to come back.
Moral of the story, would I come back? The answer obviously is yes.
Good. Okay, great.
But I have I had to say no a couple of times so far.
Yeah, Will, we know that. Do I have any purple and gold?
Go Lakers.
Oh, yeah. That's what I mean. It's Laker season.
That's right. I told you this. It hasn't changed from the first interview that we did.
Tell them.
Okay.
Tell the people.
All right. Would I do it? Yes. Would I do it for anybody? Absolutely not.
Nope, there's no way. I know from experience. In the last couple months, he would not. So stop calling unless you're serious. Unless you're trying to make a run at this thing.
Yeah.
Right? The confetti falling.
Listen.
The Lombardi in the sky. That's what we're after, okay?
Yeah.
That's what we're after.
So would I do it? Absolutely, I would do it. I told you two things. I'd have to be healthy, and I would want a chance to win a Super Bowl.
That's two pretty good
obviously,
factors.
that's a tough thing to find. That's hard to do. That's not easy.
I'm going to tell you right now, though, I know you're healthy. So.
All right, so that was Derek Carr on his podcast with his brother. And here's the thing. The Super Bowl contender, I have to feel the confetti and hoist up the Lombardi. The irony of the situation is if Derek Carr is your starting quarterback in 2026, you're probably not talking about the Super Bowl. You're probably not talking about hoisting the Lombardi. You're probably not even talking about making the playoffs because, like you said, Derek Carr at this point in his career is more of just a bridge quarterback, get you through the season, and then you're on to 2026 and what will be, or 2027 rather, and what will be supposed to be a loaded quarterback class. Now, some teams that could potentially fit that billing, I guess I'll just toss it over to you first, and then we'll kind of start to dive into a couple different teams and if Derek Carr can actually get a team to have some success. What are your thoughts on those comments of, number one, he is healthy, and he did confirm that he does want to come back, so all the reports are true, not that that's a surprise, but what are your thoughts on hoisting Lombardi and feeling the confetti falling, if that makes sense?
I'm right there with you. Is any team that's calling you to come in and kind of be the quarterback. I don't think they are in the race right now or a contender for a Super Bowl right now. I just don't think that is going to happen. And there's nothing wrong with the expectations being high and, one of those type of things. Yeah, I 100% get that. I just don't think you're going to find that. It can't be picky either. I mean, once again, like I started off with, you are a guy that has missed a complete year with injury. Kind of funny we're bringing up him missing like a whole year thing when we're talking about off air, how Jordan missed the year and came back and was just so good after his mini retirement. Well, Derek Carr, you're not Michael Jordan. I don't think you're about to miss a year and come back and completely take the league by storm. You weren't taking the league by storm when you were playing. And that's not a shot at Derek Carr, but we saw those 2 years with the Saints. We saw his career with the Raiders. He's never really been that elevating quarterback type of guy, and I don't think he's going to pick a team, and he's going to do that at the moment. You got to take it easy.
Yeah, I agree. pump the brakes a bit. And look, every player, that's their goal, is to reach the mountaintop. Every player, that's their goal, is to hoist up the Lombardi, feel the confetti falling down. But if we're being honest, the Derek Carr at this point in his career isn't that type of player. And I also just bring that up too because some of the teams that we'll talk about here are not anywhere close to hoisting up Lombardi, not anywhere close to being in that position. My thoughts on Carr, and I'm sure we'll bring the Jets up into this as well because they're in the market for a quarterback. I'm not as high on Carr as many. My issues with Carr is, my concern is the shoulder surgery that he had, coming off the rotator cuff damage, coming off the labral tear, plus he already missed a season. He's been retired for a year, so he's missed an entire year. He also dealt with some AC joint issues in his shoulder during his time in New Orleans. And I'm just worried that the arm strength, where he's at in his career, 35 years old, now will be his 12th season, taking a year off, coming off a shoulder surgery, all of those things into account. I'm just worried the possibility of a team takes him, gives him a chance, starts him, and he doesn't last the full season, where the shoulder injury pops up again or something, another issue pops up again, because he hasn't played an NFL game since December of 2024. Now, this isn't quite Phillip Rivers, where we're talking 5 years ago, but it's still missing an entire season due to retirement, now coming out of retirement and dealing with the injuries that he's dealt with, another year older. It's that those to me are just some concerns. And like you said, the numbers weren't bad. Now, he does throw hospital passes. That is something that he is known for. It's the truth. We oftentimes joke about it, but it is the truth that he tends to throw hospital passes. He gets his receivers hurt. That's a little bit of a concern at this point in his career. I've always been a very big Derek Carr supporter. Always have been. To the point of 2023, when the Jets were going through their quarterback search, I was very supportive of potentially adding Derek Carr. A lot of Jet fans, they just were all in on Rodgers. Give me Rodgers. Give me Rodgers. I actually saw the vision and saw the path with Derek Carr. Now, hindsight 2020, neither of them would have worked. Carr bombed out in New Orleans. Rodgers was a disaster here, so it wouldn't have mattered. But I've always been a big Derek Carr supporter. Just at this point in his career, I just think some of the concerns, to me, outweigh what he's been, what he once was as a quarterback, and what he can be. Now, in terms of teams, what are some teams that you see potentially being in the market for Carr? Some good fits. Now, in that clip, it's interesting because they mentioned purple and gold, which is kind of a hint at the Vikings. And I don't know if they've reached out to him already, whatever. But the Vikings are a team that you could probably throw into the mix. Steelers are a team that you could probably throw into the mix as a potential option. And if we're talking about teams, I guess we could kind of start there too. If we're talking about teams where he could step in and make the playoffs with, if I had to guess, probably the Steelers, probably the Vikings are atop that list. Would you say so? Any other teams that you have in that mix in terms of, hey, I want to hoist the Lombardi, I want to feel the confetti falling down? Well, you go to Pittsburgh. I think Rodgers returns to Pittsburgh, but he's a free agent. We still don't know what's going to happen with him. For right now, they don't have a quarterback, so Carr's got to be in the conversation, but they just made the playoffs. They have Mike McCarthy. They'll probably win 10 games and lose in the wild card round. You look at the Vikings. They went 9-8 with a terrible J.J. McCarthy. You get average quarterback play from Derek Carr, you could potentially muster up a 10-win season and maybe get the last little bit of Carr, that you have with Carr, get it out of him and be able to have some success. So what are your thoughts on some of those things?
No, there's actually two more that I threw in there. It might come as a shock. One of those is Atlanta. I think Atlanta, who is in the process of a bridge, obviously Michael Penix with the ACL tear, they need a bridge quarterback until Penix's return. But I think I'm a lot higher on the Falcons than a lot of people are. I feel like that is a Super Bowl roster. Offensively, they have talent. Defensively, they have talent. Especially on the defensive side, we have seen how great Atlanta can be in some of the games that they've played, this previous season. We have also seen times where the offense has hit a different stride where maybe we didn't expect they would necessarily hit. We've seen Kyle Pitts finally become the Kyle Pitts that a lot of people thought he would be coming out of Florida. Obviously, Bijan Robinson doesn't need to be talked about. You got a great receiver in Drake London. I like Atlanta as a spot for Derek Carr. You're in a weaker division, and I mean, I don't see anybody. I don't see Tampa. I don't see Carolina instantly becoming a 12, 13 win team. So you already there in that division. You have a shot in the South as it is. I think with the talent Atlanta has and Kevin Stefanski, who is known to be pretty decent when it comes to quarterbacks. I know the Browns and their kind of history of quarterbacks may speak differently, but Stefanski's a good quarterback guy. I mean, that's we're being honest. I think if those two can work together in that division with those weapons and that talent on both sides of the roster, that's a team kind of crazy. Definitely would make the playoffs, but does have a shot at a Lombardi, if Derek Carr can stay healthy.
Yeah, I'm kind of in the same boat as you with Atlanta. They are, I think, a lot closer than people are giving them credit for, and I love the Kevin Stefanski hire. I do. I agree with that. I said right behind Harbaugh, Stefanski was the next guy in this coaching search that really, and that was the case where if you didn't get John Harbaugh, Stefanski was going to be your guy, and that happened, right? The Giants got Harbaugh, and very quickly the Falcons pounced on Kevin Stefanski. But you're right. They've got talent. They've got a lot of pieces. And with poor coaching and very shaky quarterback play, they won 8 games last year. With Stefanski's an upgrade at coach, you just get average quarterback play on top of the weapons they've got, Bijan, Drake London, Pitts, all those guys like that, specifically Drake London and Bijan. We'll see what happens with Pitts moving forward here. But you've got a lot of weapons. Defensively, they've got some pieces. You add Carr to the mix. I definitely can see the vision there of them having some success. Stefanski with a veteran, and then who knows? Then next year, do you get your future guy? Because Carr's, like we said, he's a 1-year stopgap. Yeah. So he's a 1-year. Go to Atlanta, go to Pittsburgh, go to Minnesota, and then 2027 you search for most likely your long-term answer. Unless if Derek Carr lights it up and is that good, and you say there's no reason to come back. I agree with that. Any other teams you have in the mix outside of Atlanta that you could see Carr going to and potentially having some success?
Yeah, the Colts are another one. Same situation, kind of that bridge guy waiting for their quarterback to return. And they're a good team. The Colts are also another good team. And, I mean, I know life is all about the ifs and maybe and whatnot. This is a coach team. If Daniel Jones stayed healthy, I mean, the season obviously goes a lot differently. And we are potentially talking about the coach maybe winning the Super Bowl. So they are very similar in terms of Atlanta, where I think they found their guy in their coach, finally. They have the weapons. The defense, obviously not on the same tier of Atlanta's, but it's one of those things that we kind of talked about it. We talk about it so often. You don't really necessarily need a top 10 defense anymore. If your offense is good enough and you can have a middle-of-the-pack defense that can just get the important stops, force the turnovers when need, you can be successful. And the Colts kind of have that defense. Obviously still need some work. That's why they acquired Sauce, during the trade deadline. They do need pieces still on the defensive side. But I think the defense is good enough where with solid quarterback play, as good as the Colts run the ball and as good as their weapons are outside, if the defense can just get some stops, get it going. Derek Carr in that offense, I think they can also make some noise. Very similar to Atlanta as well. Outside of Houston, I'm not even going to say that. That's a lie. I forgot Jacksonville was actually pretty good this year. So it's not that easy in that division, but you can be competitive at least with Houston and Jacksonville.
Yeah, I agree. And I think that's another intriguing spot. Pittsburgh, Minnesota, you throw them in the mix as well. Specifically Minnesota. Pittsburgh, I think anybody could play quarterback and they're going to win 10 games and lose in the wild card round at this rate. But another team I throw into the mix is Miami.
I have them as well.
They're going to need a quarterback. You're most likely moving on from Tua. You've got some weapons. You've got some pieces there. Now, they're a little bit of a mess roster-wise, and they've got some weapons, but in terms of cap space, they're a mess roster-wise. And we also have to bring into account, too, with Derek Carr. You got to trade for him. You got to give up assets for him because the Saints still own his rights, and you got to take on that contract. That's another thing with Carr. Miami, I think, might be a little like a tier below some of those other teams, but they're still a team that you have to throw into the mix. to me with Carr, and that's why I like a team like Atlanta or even Minnesota, where he's not at the point in his career, in my opinion, anymore where he's going to elevate those around him.
Yeah.
He needs to be on a team where he can kind of just game manage, be competent, take care of the football, get the ball out to his weapons, good coaching, all of those things, and have success that way, which Minnesota, he can do that with the weapons around him. He can do that in Atlanta with the weapons around him and better coaching with Kevin Stefanski. I don't know with the situation in Miami, and you even go to Pittsburgh, that's where I think maybe they're a bit of a tier below, if you agree with that, where he's going to have to probably do a little bit more, going to have to elevate a little bit more as opposed to just essentially managing the game, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I'm right on board, especially specifically Miami, which is the team I have here. If I have a question, I typed out 4 question marks next to Miami because again, the organization, I mean, the point that the Dolphins are in right now, as
They're
a
in a really
quarterback,
bad spot.
yeah, you don't want to go there. I mean, you're not going to win there, and you're just going to kind of further tarnish your legacy. Not saying Derek Carr has much of an extreme legacy, but it's one of those places you don't want to, come out of retirement for a year and the organization is banking on you and they built nothing around you. You're horrible. Like at that rate, you might as well just stay retired. So Miami, I mean, if they can figure out the cap issues and figure out what it is as far as the roster on both sides, because both sides are in dire need of almost everything, I think Derek Carr should stay away from Miami.
Yeah, I agree. I will say this, and I agree that he should stay away. But if Derek Carr, and it doesn't sound like he's in this mindset, but if he's in the mindset of, hey, let me play it one more year and just call it quits after, Miami's not the worst spot to do it.
Yeah.
I mean, he's got the beaches, no state income tax. Like, if he wants to go there and essentially, hey, let me play one more year, that's probably better than going to a cold Minnesota or Indianapolis or Atlanta or any of these other places that aren't, I guess, as appealing, like living wise. You go to Miami, you go to the beaches, you win 5 games, but you're on the beach every day. Like, if that's the way he goes out, like I can kind of understand that mindset, but it seems like he's probably more in the I'm going back to legitimately make a push at this thing. And in that case, I don't think Miami's very, very good. Any other teams on your list? I mean, look, the Jets are going to they're in the market. I want nothing to do with him personally on the Jets. It's just not going to work. No. Give me Brissett. Give me any of these other free agents taking on that contract at this in this point. I just don't. It's not going to work. Nobody's going to work on the Jets. Let's be honest. Whoever they sign. But any other teams on this list?
There's one more. I kind of can't gauge what they might potentially do, and that's the Chiefs. They're in a blunder. We don't know. They're very similar to Miami in a sense of like you kind of just don't know what they're going to do and what direction they're going to go in. Obviously, no Mahomes for quite some time in this season. But if you're the Chiefs, are you looking from the outside in? Are you looking at the Chargers? Are you looking at the Broncos? And you're like, hey, we're not about to trade away some picks for Derek Carr, knowing we don't actually have a shot with those two teams and how good those two teams are. Or do you bring in Derek Carr, you kind of take a gamble like, hey, if we can be a game behind, 2 games behind for the division lead with Derek Carr until Mahomes comes back, do we go all out and we try it? Chiefs, though, a lot of free agents. Kelsey's decision is kind of undecided, even though he's kind of pretty much washed. So you don't know the dude from Kelsey's angle of it. But you look at the Chiefs, guys out there like, David Njoku is going to be a free agent. Yeah. Kyle Pitts we talked about is going to be a free agent. Do you try to bring in a few guys to intrigue Derek Carr? It's like, hey, we got you this. We're the Chiefs. At the end of the day, the Chiefs are one of those teams who's like, hey, we can win. We can find ways to win. That might be intriguing to him if they can bring in a set of guys that he knows he has a shot to hold up that Lombardi trophy. I don't see Kansas City as a bad spot.
Yes, already kind of proven set winning culture.
Yeah.
Obviously Mahomes with the torn ACL. I could see that, understand that. I guess I would throw into the mix. I don't see this happening, but like one other team would maybe be Cleveland, and not necessarily like he's not going to have, I don't think, much of a chance to win there. They're a mess, so I don't. They would just be the next team that's looking for a quarterback that you'd throw into the conversation. Maybe Arizona. Arizona could be intriguing. I wrote them down. I think Arizona, though, and we maybe can get into this too a little bit more later on. I think Arizona is either going to just keep Brissett, or I could see them going after Malik Willis because Mike LaFleur takes over. He is the brother of Matt LaFleur. I could see that being a situation where very similar offensive schemes. They go out and potentially get Willis. Arizona's roster, they have some pieces. They've got arguably the best tight end in the NFL. They've got a very good receiver, wide receiver one, or should be a very good wide receiver one, Marvin Harrison Jr., that for whatever reason, him and Kyler Murray couldn't get on the same page. But, I mean, I guess, do you still believe in Marv? Or with better quarterback play? And not that Derek Carr is much of an improvement, but
he burnt me in fantasy this year. But I guess to keep the fantasy aside from it, it's kind of hard to have faith in a guy that's really not showing much. But, you know, we talk about it kind of fairly often. For a receiver, it's kind of hard to put all the blame on a receiver because, yes, your job is to get the ball, but you can't get the ball if the quarterback doesn't throw it to you. And we've heard the comments from Kyler before of whatever he said, like it's not my job to force feed him targets or whatever the case is. So maybe a Derek Carr, a vet that is going to utilize his wide receiver one, maybe, you know, there's some more growth from Marvin and he can finally gel into what we want. But it's kind of hard to trust him right now to be the leader of a pack when he hasn't shown it quite yet and he's inconsistent.
Yeah. No, yeah, I agree. I guess just you'd hope that the potential is still there. There's still a bit of a ceiling with him. Michael Wilson had an excellent season. Yeah. You'll get James Conner back. Like they've got some pieces. They're a new coach. They were in some of the games last year. I mean, Jacoby Brissett was throwing touchdowns left and right. They just gave up a ton of points, and they were a bad team. So that's where the 3 wins come from. But I think those are the main teams. If you had to make a prediction, where does he land?
I'm probably gonna say, that's tough. I can't say that. I want to say Minnesota, but for Minnesota's case, that's just a terrible look. We've spent time bashing Minnesota already for their decisions. That's such a terrible look to let Darnold walk. He instantly wins the Super Bowl, and you don't even trust JJ McCarthy. You bring in Derek Carr. There's going to be some conversations made in the front office, and they've already made some moves regarding the front office.
Yep.
But if it's not Minnesota, if Rodgers doesn't come back, I'm probably going with Pittsburgh.
Yes, I think Rodgers comes back, but in the event Rodgers doesn't come back, I could see Derek Carr skyrocketing all the way up to number 1 on Pittsburgh's list, and that being his number 1 destination because – look, if he wants a chance to make the playoffs and get into the dance and have a shot at the Super Bowl, Pittsburgh's probably the best spot because they have proven, at least under Tomlin, all jokes aside, they have proven that they can get to the playoffs with very mediocre quarterback play. And at that point, it's in Derek Carr's hands once they get to the playoffs to make a run and help them make a run. And if he believes in himself that he could do that, then that would be a spot where both sides kind of see eye to eye in terms of the vision there. I definitely agree with you. For right now, though, I'm going to go Minnesota, Atlanta. I'm going to kind of put them tied. And I think another thing to keep into account, too, with Atlanta, and this is, I guess, the balancing act between Minnesota and Atlanta. Minnesota, he's walking into a gauntlet of a division. Atlanta, he's walking into a division where it's very weak. I mean, he experienced it for 2 years with the Saints. An incredibly weak division. The winner of that division went 8-9 last season. So you talk about your best path in his logic of making a Super Bowl. The first big step you take is winning your division and getting a home playoff game. And out of all the teams that are open with quarterbacks or need a quarterback, I'd say the team that has the best shot at winning their division, not necessarily based on just the team and the state of the team, but more so to the division, would be the Falcons because of the NFC South and how weak it is. Now, I get there is some optimism with Tyler Shuck and the way he played in New Orleans and the season that they had towards the end of the year. The Panthers, you expect them to potentially take another step. We'll see what happens with the Bucs. They kind of seem like they might be more so on their way down as opposed to up, but still, it's not a juggernaut of a division as opposed to going to Minnesota where you've got to play Green Bay twice a year, Detroit twice a year. Just the quarterbacks you got to play twice a year. He all of a sudden he walks into the NFC North as the worst quarterback in the division.
1,000%.
He walks into the NFC South. Oh, Jordan Love.
JJ McCarthy.
Oh well, yeah, but he would be taking his job.
You're
I
right.
mean, the three other starting quarterbacks for the other teams.
Jordan Love's a little overrated, but yeah, I would probably say he walks in that division the worst quarterback.
Yeah. Yes. The NFC South, you could make the case. I don't know. I mean, he might be the worst there too. I don't know.
I would have said second best.
Second best. So you would
Second
put
best.
him over. You would put him over. I'd put him over Shuck.
I put him over Shuck. I put him over.
I wouldn't put him
Bryce
over
Young.
Baker.
Not over Baker. Baker still won. I know the season was rough, but
Yes.
with Bryce, still kind of got to see a little more. Obviously, he played a lot better, but I mean, the
I could see
experience, I think, with Carr.
Yeah. I see that. I guess my point would be like I could see kind of a Bryce Young level statistical season out of Derek Carr where he throws for, just over 3,000 yards, 23, 24 touchdowns, and 11, 12 picks. They would kind of be in the same boat, which in that case, it's just pick your whoever, at that point. But and that's basing it off of this year too. Bryce Young could take his game to another level next season. We'll see how that all plays out. But anyway, that's the Derek Carr conversation. We'll see where he ends up. But another name to throw into the mix, and all of these quarterbacks coming out of retirement. Any other quarterbacks that could come out of retirement? I mean, Phillip Rivers already did. Derek Carr's doing it now. Who else on this list? Or I don't know. Who else just retired that's like not? I don't even know. What bad quarterback retired? Yeah.
I think that's it. There's not a lot of other names that kind of hop out at you. And if those quarterbacks do intrigue you, start looking at 2027 for your potential rookie quarterback.
Yes. Yeah. You know whose name occasionally gets popped up is Colt McCoy. It's funny. Because I remember when Rodgers tore his Achilles, people brought up Colt McCoy. Now, it's not going to happen. He's been out of the league for 3 years. But if there was another quarterback that I had to make a prediction on returning, it would be Colt McCoy. And like you said, in that case, look ahead to 2027.
Yeah.
All right, anyway. We move on now to Derek Carr's former team, and that is the Las Vegas Raiders. And they made a change at head coach, obviously after the one-and-done disastrous season with Pete Carroll that earned them the number 1 overall pick. They turn around and hire Klint Kubiak, fresh off of the Super Bowl win. He heads to Vegas and takes over the reins for the Raiders, signed a 5-year contract. They made it official on Monday. The Raiders have a new head man, and this desperately needs to work for the Raiders. This is one of the more important hires the Raiders have made because you look at their organization and where they're at, they have just been a disaster now for the better part of 2 decades, essentially. They haven't won a playoff game since their Super Bowl run in 2002. And they've gone through coaches like you change socks, from Antonio Pierce to Josh McDaniels to Pete Carroll to Gruden. Jack Del Rio only lasted, 3 seasons. They have been a mess, and they've tried a lot of different avenues. They've tried a lot of different ways in terms of Josh McDaniels and pairing him with Derek Carr. They went out and got Devontae Adams. They kind of built more of a win-now roster. They tried to get the most out of Derek Carr. And then even last year, they tried to skip all the rebuilding steps and bring in Geno Smith, bring in Pete Carroll, who has had a ton of success in the NFL, and hope that they can, in a very tough division, come out of there with 9-10 wins, make the playoffs. On paper, you saw some of the potential with that team last year, but the bottom fell out. So this is a big hire, especially because all signs point towards them drafting a quarterback in Fernando Mendoza and him being this franchise's new signal caller and him being the future of this franchise. So what are your thoughts on Klint Kubiak? I like the direction that they have taken because they just failed with Pete Carroll, an experienced coach. I like the Klint Kubiak hire because it's the young, innovative, first-time offensive mind, and that's kind of the direction that they need to head in, especially when you take into account potentially drafting a quarterback.
I like the hire for him getting his opportunity, him getting his shot. Well, let me rephrase. I like the hire for the Raiders, them going out, like you're saying, getting a young-minded, offensive coordinator that's about to be your head coach, obviously led Seattle, great numbers offensively. I feel like that's somewhere for him to go, and it's not going to work out. Not taking nothing away from, Klint Kubiak, but just some of his years as offensive coordinator, 21 in Minnesota, 14th in points per game, 12th in total offense, kind of middle of the pack, not too bad. You look at 24, 25th in points with the Saints, 21st in offense, and now it's a Derek Carr year. Obviously, Derek Carr only played 10 games, so those numbers are a little skewed. And then last year in Seattle, 8th in total offense, 3rd in points per game with talent. Now I feel like this guy is walking into an empty cave of nothingness because the Raiders have no talent. You have Brock Bowers, very promising. You have Ashton Genty, very promising. But this is a team that was dead last in total offense, dead last in points per game, dead last in rushing yards per game. So I don't see how he necessarily gets over there and completely flips the script. And I hope I'm wrong. Like, I want him to go there and be successful. Obviously, everybody deserves their shot, and he 100% deserves his shot with the tremendous year he just had with Seattle. But for the Raiders, and you mentioned it, thank you for bringing it up, for an organization that 1 year, you're done, 2 years, you're done, half a year, you're done, you got to build it. You got to start somewhere. So if this is a situation where you think he's going to come in and completely just change the trajectory of this organization, and if it doesn't, you fire him next year, you just wasted, another year of being terrible.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. No, I agree. And they've got a lot of holes on the roster, and they've got a lot of issues. And frankly, they've got a lot of issues just internally with the organization. I mean, ownership with Mark Davis, it's been a mess. He's made a lot of these hires. It feels like now Brady's starting to get more involved. But what does that even mean? He was the one that was pushing for Chip Kelly last year. So is that a good thing necessarily? And I know, the NFL treats Brady as its golden boy. So you're not going to get much criticism on him for that move. But that's something else to factor in. I agree with pretty much everything you said in terms of it's a good hire on paper. It's a good good opportunity for him. But yeah, there's a lot of work to do. And there's a lot of holes in this roster. And I think one of the most alarming aspects and I guess this is kind of where you can say, okay, better coach, things will work out because they have a few pieces. Brock Bowers showed potential. Ashton Genty, you hope with better coaching, those guys can be better players with a more younger, innovative, offensive-minded coach who we just saw what he was able to do in Seattle and win the Super Bowl, that you hope he can get more out of those guys. But that's also the same concerning part as you went out and drafted Ashton Genty and he didn't have a very good season. You barely used him. That's an issue. That's a coaching thing. You hope Klint Kubiak can break out of that. And also, you've got to build up this roster even more, too, because who's the number one receiver right now? There isn't any. What is it, Trey Tucker?
Trey Tucker.
That's the number one receiver, right? That's unacceptable. That can't be the case. That can't be your number one guy. And that's the concern I do have with the Raiders is we talk about this a lot, and people around the NFL talk about this a lot, is instead of putting a quarterback and hoping that he can save the team and kind of drafting a quarterback and then putting him into a situation where he has to essentially do everything and elevate those around him, You'd rather draft a quarterback and put him in a situation where you have a ton of talent around him. They can elevate him, and the rookie quarterback, doesn't have to go out there and put the team on his back. You want to already have a foundation, a system in place for the rookie quarterback. And that's the concern with Mendoza potentially going to the Raiders, is there isn't much around him right now. You're going to be asking him to, work with Trey Tucker, Jack Besh, Dante Thornton. It's not great. Now, the positive to it is they have $91 million in cap space, and that's second in the NFL, only behind the Titans. So they're up there near the top of the league in cap space. So they've got to utilize that cap space. You've got to get another wide receiver. You got to get a legitimate wide receiver one, whether that's trade, whether it's free agency. You've got to try and find somebody to be that wide receiver one. You've got 10 draft picks. Build up the offense. Go all offense, honestly. Get 2 more receivers. Trey Tucker as a number 3 is not terrible.
Yeah.
As a number 1, it's terrible. Get more out of Brock Bowers, get more out of Ashton Genty, and that's where you take the approach of taking a chance on a younger, up-and-coming offensive coordinator, where you hope you can get more out of these guys and get more out of get the most out of Fernando Mendoza. I guess, do you feel they're putting Mendoza in a good situation, or how much concern should there be on Fernando Mendoza walking into that situation? And look, there's been a lot of the Raiders, I will say this, they do a lot of stupid stuff in the draft. They take a lot of risks, they take a lot of chances. And I'm not saying that they're not going to draft Fernando Mendoza, but they have a history of doing a lot of stupid things during the draft in terms of some of their draft picks, some of the risks they take, a lot of the draft busts they've taken over the years. What are your thoughts on Mendoza to Vegas? All signs pointing towards. Do you see a world where they trade out and they see, hey, we have so many holes on this roster, trade out, stockpile a ton of picks, and build out that way?
Well, if you do draft him, you're putting a brand new engine in a car where the brake lights don't work, the windows don't roll down, the AC is broken, everything is wrong with this car, and you're just putting a brand new engine in it. So it's not going to work. And let's say they run it back. Let's say they make no moves whatsoever. And this is something I hate about things that happens in the NFL, whether that's bringing a new quarterback or you're bringing a new coach. You brought in Geno Smith and Pete Carroll, 2 guys that know how to win in this league. They have experience. If they couldn't win, what makes you think a rookie quarterback who some feel is not actually really that good after all, and then a first-time head coach, what logic is it that you think they're going to come in and instantly turn this organization around? It's not going to work. So they are going to have to, like you said, perfectly, if we're being honest, you kind of need to figure out everything else around you. And I don't see nothing wrong with going offensive heavy. I really like that approach. Then again, unless I lived in a different timeline, I swore Jamal Adams played linebacker for the Raiders this year. So some things you kind of need to touch up some other spots as well. And you just want to be balanced. The defense doesn't get talked about how kind of they weren't too great because the offense was just pitiful and it was pathetic just year round. So, if you're the Raiders, if you're the Raiders, I don't see nothing wrong with, potentially trading back because there's too many holes in the roster, but you don't need to. You mentioned the $91 million in cap space. You go out and you get the pieces that you need. You make some trades. I know we're going to get into this guy later. You get rid of Maxx Crosby. You trade him. You get a haul of picks. You build from there. Michael Mayer is another guy I feel like has been kind of on the trade block for quite some time, specifically with Brock Bowers coming in. You trade Mayer, you might get a third, you might get a fourth. Just accumulate as much picks as you can, and then you go and you draft, or you trade those picks for something else. But if you're the Raiders, man, if you're going to bring Mendoza in and start him day one or sit him behind Geno Smith, whatever their plan is, it's not going to work out as long as you have a bunch of nobodies on your roster.
Yeah, No, I agree. And Mendoza is clearly the number one pick, clearly the number one quarterback in this draft. And I like Mendoza a lot, but I also don't know if he's a guy that's going to be that generational talent that could step in and just elevate all those other guys around him. Look, Fernando Mendoza is great, and I wish he was going to be a New York Jet, but I do think some people need to pump the brakes a little bit on Fernando Mendoza. I think there's been a lot of people that are acting like this guy is the greatest quarterback we've ever seen come out of college. That's not the case. He's very good. There's a lot of really good things to like, but I agree with you in terms of him just stepping in and elevating everybody else around him. I don't necessarily know if that's the case. And look, one thing I will say, I like what Klint Kubiak has done so far is some of the staff additions that he's made. He brought on Mike McCoy as a kind of a veteran offensive assistant, which I like for a first-time offensive coordinator turned head coach. To have a guy that's been a head coach before on your staff, I think is always beneficial for these coaches. They also promoted, which transitions us into Maxx Crosby. They also promoted Rob Leonard to their new defensive coordinator, and he was previously the defensive line coach. And all reports state that he had a very close relationship with Maxx Crosby in Vegas. He is now the defensive coordinator. You kind of read between the lines. That feels like a Klint Kubiak message to Crosby. Klint Kubiak move, a move the Raiders make to try and keep Crosby here by promoting a coach on the staff that he has a lot of respect for as the new defensive coordinator. What's the future with Maxx Crosby? Is he a Raider in week 1 of 2026?
I think he's gone. I think you have to ship him out during the draft. If we're being honest, there's going to be a handful of teams that are interested. Dallas being one of them. And I saw a rumor. If Dallas trades George Pickens to the Raiders in exchange for Maxx Crosby, I'm done being a Cowboys fan. I'm not doing that. I'm just throwing that out there now. But for the Maxx Crosby sake, and it's kind of very similar to the Myles Garrett thing. I hate when guys, and it's not really much Maxx Crosby, it's been more kind of Myles Garrett, but guys sit there and rot on teams that they know aren't any good, and they do this whole loyalty. They get into the season's not going great, and then they want out, but you're chasing the money. For Maxx Crosby, I mean, man, you've been with the Raiders for 7 years. You've been to the playoffs one time. You are wasting your prime. You are wasting your golden years. I understand you want loyalty to an extent, especially for a guy in Crosby. Like, if you know and have paid attention to some of the upcomings of Maxx Crosby when he first got into the league and some things he's dealt with, the Raiders took a shot on him. So I understand why he wants to remain so loyal to the Raiders and just taking the opportunity with them. But at some point, man, you got to put yourself first, and you got to get out of there. We saw Devontae Adams do it, where he went with the Raiders, and it wasn't going to work out. He didn't want to waste some of his prime years he's left. Maxx Crosby needs to
went to the Jets.
That I don't know why he did that. I don't understand why he did that from mid to mid, but for Crosby, I think you got to get out. If you can still give your loyalty to the Raiders in a way, and that is getting them a handful of picks by getting out of Vegas. And I think he needs to do that. And I think they need to do that.
Yeah, I agree. And I think the more and more you read in the Crosby situation, I still think that he is a Raider. And I don't know if it's just Maxx Crosby fatigue, but it feels like now for like 3 years, we just talk about Maxx Crosby and him not. Is he going to get traded? Is he not going to get traded? What's going to happen with him? They promoted the defense. They promoted Rob Leonard to defensive coordinator. I could see this being another Klint Kubiak new coach. We're going to get Mendoza. We have $91 million in cap space. Kind of see how the offseason plays out. That could be a lot of it too. He's got to closely watch what they do in the offseason. Like, are they making legitimate improvements to the roster? If he feels they are, and he has a sense of belief in this new head coach, and I just think in the back of his mind, he's going to be, you know what, let me give this a shot with Kubiak and see how it goes. And if they stink, then maybe he says, all right, now I'm officially out. But you're right, though. Like, time's ticking. He's 28 years old. He's going to be 29 in August. So when week 1 rolls around, he's going to be 29 years old. He's almost 30 years old. This is his last season he'll play under 30 years old. People forget, like, he's been in the league now for 7 seasons, like you mentioned, since 2019. This will be his 8th year in the NFL. He's nearing a decade in the NFL. He's not going to be this dominant forever. 69.5 sacks in his career, 10 sacks last season in 15 games. We all know what Maxx Crosby's capable of and what he's been able to do throughout his career. I don't know, though. I could be wrong. That whole situation last year with not playing him could have been the straw that broke the camel's back, and that could be the end. In the event they do trade him, destinations. I feel like the same teams will probably pop up. I always continue to state the Buffalo Bills as being that team. Anytime an elite edge rusher is on the market, on the table, even just a possibility, they've got to be in the conversation, because that's still the one thing I think they're missing, is that elite pass rusher that can go into a playoff game and just dominate and make life for a Burrow or a Mahomes or a Lamar completely miserable. I go back to this playoff game this year with the Broncos. They didn't get to Bo Nix once. That's big. So any other destinations potentially for Maxx Crosby?
Buffalo's definitely on top of that list for me. I have Buffalo and Dallas 1A, 1B. Again, not at the cost of George Pickens, but for a Dallas team that also is in dire need of a complete retool on the defensive side. Heck, you go out and you get a pass rusher that can, help elevate that defense. The Bears are another one. I saw the Bears as a name that kind of popped up around the trade deadline, and I think the Bears have showed this year, and Ben Johnson kind of knows we're in it. Like, we're for real, especially in that division with the offenses that we talk about it so often. I think Ben Johnson knows that defense, who already had a very good year, if we're being honest. I think Chicago kind of caught a lot of people by surprise defensively. Yep. But for a Bears team that I feel like has found their franchise guy in Caleb Williams, just need a few pieces here and there, Maxx Crosby to Chicago will instantly elevate that team and probably make them Super Bowl favorites.
Yes, I like Chicago. I would throw like maybe Jacksonville into the mix too as a potential team. They have Josh Hines-Allen, but adding somebody else opposite, somebody else that can provide a little bit more juice. I mean, they do have Trayvon Walker, who, they drafted, what was that, 4 years ago now, I think. But he's been a little bit of a disappointing season. Not Maxx Crosby. Maybe a team like Tampa, too, where you just look at what their edge rushing situation they have, Vita Vea and guys like that up front in the interior. We'll see kind of what happens with Levante David if he decides to retire or not. His future's kind of up in the air, but I think they could be another team, too, that could potentially add some juice. Just trying to think of some more outside-the-box teams, because I agree with you. Dallas, you throw the Bills in the mix there, too. All of those teams are real options. Bears as well, another team to take the next step, because that's ultimately what an elite edge rusher can do. You talk about quarterbacks, edge rushers, those two players can take you to another level, reach another step. What about San Fran? Just builds just him and Bosa just build a. They've always intrigued me. Not necessarily that they need an edge rusher. Now, they didn't get home much last year to the quarterback, but defensively they were still. But they dealt with a ton of injuries, all that stuff. But and I know they drafted Mykel Williams just a year ago, and he didn't play much at all. He was obviously hurt. I understand that. But are we sure Mykel Williams is ever going to be Maxx Crosby? So maybe you make a move for San Fran where you pair him up with Bosa and just you're probably talking about the most dangerous pass rush potentially in the NFL if you pair those two together.
Okay. Got another
potentially.
If San Fran, I like the spot. And again, they think they were second to last in sacks last year. So for a San Fran team that as good as they are defensively, good as they are offensively, defensively, obviously Fred Warner will be back. That will completely change that defense. The two of those together, I don't think that it's a bad spot. You kind of stay on that West Coast as it is, because something about these guys don't like to go east to west, west to east, whatever the case is. Stay pretty close. Potentially, I'm gonna throw another one. We're about to talk about this set individual next. We talked about this team earlier, but what about the Atlanta Falcons?
That's a good point.
Very good point. Stefanski, to go from Myles Garrett over to Maxx Crosby, we talked about how good the defense is, and they probably don't have an edge rusher next year, which we will get into next. So if you're Atlanta, you kind of got to completely wipe your hands clean of James Pierce with everything he has going on. You want to be for real, you go get a Maxx Crosby. Hey, Derek Carr, we got you an elite pass rusher. We got some weapons on the offense. Come join us in Atlanta. I can see that happening.
Yeah, that's a very good point. And that kind of transitions us perfectly into the James Pierce situation. What's your thoughts on the whole situation? And it really just is future, I guess, in the NFL. It's disappointing to see another one of these players, especially a level of James Pierce, who had a good season last year, 10.5 sacks. He had a solid year for Atlanta. First round pick, 26th overall. Bad look too for the Falcons because I believe they made the trade for. They had him and Jalen Walker were in the same draft.
Mm-hmm.
One of them is now essentially probably out of the league. What are your thoughts?
I don't get it. I don't get it. I don't understand some of the decisions these guys make during the offseason or even in season. I don't want to say I'm surprised though. And that kind of sounds insensitive, but just at his time with Tennessee, there was reports with him in Tennessee, him being uncoachable, demeanor issues, anger issues, those type of things, and which is why I believe he dropped in the draft as much as he did. You could argue he was probably the best pass rusher, at least when it comes to the trades. He was probably the best in the draft. But for a young guy that led the team in sacks, and before your career even gets started, it probably ends. It's such a bad. It's terrible for him. It's terrible for Rakia Jackson, which even looks even worse. You are involved with a WNBA player, a very high-profile WNBA player, and this is kind of how your actions are taking you. At some point, man, you got to take a breath and you got to relax and do your jail math and kind of realize, hey, if I do something stupid, this is what I can be looking at for the future. This is how I can impact my life negatively. Yeah. And for James Pierce, it's a terrible look for Atlanta. It's a terrible look, and it kind of goes to speak to that organization. This is another fumble, Penix, Cousins, Pierce. This team can't seem to get it right.
Yeah, no, I agree. And I think the worst part of this whole Pierce situation is they traded up with him. They moved up to number 26, and they gave up their first round pick this year to the Rams to get him. You trade up, and also last year's second, a 7th, and then they also got a 3rd in return. So, but the point being is they gave up this year's first round pick for James Pierce, and his play on the field was very good. Like you said, led the Falcons in sacks. Anytime you get a rookie that goes out there and puts up a 10-plus sack season is very impressive. You mentioned some of the stuff going back to Tennessee, but had a good rookie year. There was no signs of any problems going on during the season, coachability, all those different things. But when you trade up for a guy like that, this after year one can't happen. You can't trade up, give up this year's first round pick, give it to the Rams of all teams, who just finesse in the draft now. They go out and find all these guys in the late rounds. Now they're acquiring first round picks for a guy that's probably going to be kicked out of the NFL. Not that they knew that at the time, but the point being is from James Pierce's perspective too, you've got to realize what they gave up to get you. They mortgaged some of their future to go kind of all in on you, bring you in, build up this defense. Jeff Ulbrich, the defensive coordinator, who is an awful head coach, but a good defensive coordinator, is a guy that needs his pass rushers, can help this team get home to the quarterback. So, and Pierce was able to do that. So yeah, it's a bad look. Like these guys, it's just the dumb activities. It's just dumb. Like you're 22 years old, getting paid millions of dollars, and you're just gonna throw your career away for stupidity. I think that's probably the best way to put it.
Yeah.
So it's not a good look either for Atlanta because now you're down a pass rusher from the football side of things. And that's where you bring in the Maxx Crosby argument. But then again, like, what's the ammunition for Crosby? You don't have a first-round pick now.
Yeah.
You know?
That's the problem. Yep.
Yes. All right. Any kind of, as we kind of close things out, what are your thoughts on the other quarterbacks available? Mentioned Kirk Cousins. Any other quarterbacks that you have your eye on? Jacoby Brissett, Kyler Murray, Tua, they'll be out there. Marcus Mariota. Go down the lists of all these elite quarterbacks.
Kyler Murray to Minnesota, I feel, is something that we might see kind of heat up here. And again, for Minnesota, this is such the fact that we're in QB talk with Minnesota is such a bad look. That's going to set this organization back for quite some time. But if you are Minnesota, and I think you're in win now mode, if we're being honest. I think this season that just passed puts a lot more pressure on you. Also, as well, the clock on Justin Jefferson is kind of ticking. The clock on Jordan Addison, if the guy can stay out of trouble, is kind of ticking. You have to win now. So if you're Minnesota, I think and Kyler, I think you try a 1-year experiment. JJ needs to sit. I mean, you're not winning games with 9. Unless you're playing the Dallas Cowboys every week, you're not winning many games with 9. So I think you let him sit behind Kyler, learn a little more, and you try to go out and win now. Because, his time in Arizona is done. And for the Vikings, for O'Connell, who might also time be ticking for him, you need to get a guy in there that's going to kind of turn the organization around ASAP. I like Kyler Murray to go to Minnesota.
Yeah, that's intriguing. And I think, too, he'll have talent around him. He's got some of the pieces around him. Here's just my big question with Kyler Murray is, like, for Kevin O'Connell, is that the guy that you want to kind of put your eggs in the Kyler Murray basket with in a potential hot seat year where we've heard all these concerns with Kyler, of the work ethics, things like that? Like, that's a little bit of a concern, but there's going to be a concern with all these guys. But I do like the idea of Kyler to the Vikings. Justin Jefferson. Will this be another situation where he wonders how he gets 1,000 yards?
Hot take here. I think Justin Jefferson wonders how he gets to 1,000 yards, and he gets 1,000 yards with a different team after the trade deadline.
Ooh, interesting.
Buffalo.
Who is that team?
Buffalo.
All right, Buffalo.
Yeah.
I could see Buffalo happening. You don't see it before the season.
I don't think so. I think whatever direction they decide to go as far as quarterback, they're going to give it a shot because, again, this is a team that's also a lot closer than we think. I think, again, they're a quarterback away. They have some talent. They're going to kind of see how it goes. And if they can't win games and, him and whoever's a quarterback can't get on the same page, whether that is 9 or whether that is Kyler, they send him off.
Yeah. You don't believe in 9.
Don't believe in 9.
I like Malik Willis to the Cardinals. That'll be my prediction for the Cardinals. Malik Willis to Arizona. I mentioned it a little bit earlier. Mike LaFleur taking over there. Similar scheme to what Matt LaFleur runs. I could see Matt LaFleur and Mike LaFleur, the two brothers, I could see that talking it over, honestly, with each other. And he had success with Matt LaFleur, understanding the type of player he is. I kind of just feel the connection between those two coaches and where the Cardinals are at. I could see that being a situation that fits him. And I think that's what Malik Willis needs. He needs to go to a team with a young, innovative offensive mind. Malik Willis to me isn't a fit for a team like the Browns or even a team like the Jets, just throwing him out there as where you have, he needs to go to a team that they can a young coach can get the most out of him, similar to Matt LaFleur, because that's really where Malik Willis's stretch of play has come from, is under LaFleur. I think he's more of a product of the better coaching than himself. Actual good play. I think Rodgers goes back to Pittsburgh, if I had to guess. And I think the Jets either end up with Kirk Cousins or Jacoby Brissett. I think they end up with two veterans, Kirk Cousins or Jacoby Brissett. Cousins and Frank Reich have had a connection off the field with each other. They're close. Frank Reich also likes his certain type of quarterback, those big body quarterbacks that have strong arms, that could pocket passers, that could take a hit in the pocket, stand in the pocket, like those type of quarterbacks, not necessarily your smaller mobile quarterbacks. Phillip Rivers, Andrew Luck, Kirk Cousins, Jacoby Brissett, Carson Wentz, all guys that he has worked with, those all kind of fit that billing. So I'd throw Kirk Cousins or Brissett in the mix there for them too. Who else you got? Any other thoughts?
Where does Tua land?
That's a great question.
I have here. I have
the Colts.
It's so hard to think that he's going to completely phase out of the league. I just don't think that's the case. And if you're the Colts again, just going back to the whole Derek Carr thing, you're bringing a guy that knows how to win, just had trouble doing it. And for Tua, it's been the injuries, it's been the turnovers. But if you're the coach, do you kind of gamble and you just say like, hey, we're not really banking on winning this year. We're kind of banking on the return of Daniel Jones. Let's just go out there and throw whoever out there behind center. You do that with Tua. You don't got to pay him. Miami is willing to pay a lot of that money that they've stated.
Whereas Atlanta could be another Tua destination potentially.
Yeah. Atlanta, regardless, need a quarterback. They need a quarterback, so they're going to have to kind of just pick out of the bunch. Either that's putting a bunch of names in a hat and picking one. They need a quarterback. They're going to get a quarterback. I could see Tua to the Falcons.
Yeah. Interesting. I could see Tua to Atlanta. I don't see Pittsburgh happening.
Mm-mm.
That would be a disaster, too, in the cold. Honestly, like Tua, like, can he go anywhere in the cold? No.
Not.
That's a real thing, though. Like, if you're the Steelers or even the Jets, the cold is a real issue. As opposed to the Falcons playing a dome, the Colts playing a dome.
Cardinals, if you throw out, they don't go Willis. They play.
I guess they could. Arizona could be somewhat intriguing. What about a Kyler Tua trade?
So I actually, on this list as well, the two spots I have for Kyler is Minnesota and Miami. And then Tua, I have Minnesota, potentially, depending on how they want to go with things.
Yeah.
The Colts, the Cardinals. I could see a trade.
Yeah, I could see a trade like that. And yeah, that would be very interesting. I don't know who wins that trade, honestly.
Probably Miami.
Probably. I could see Tua having some success in Arizona. I don't know. Maybe I'm hyping up Arizona too much.
I think Kyler gets the success in Miami. I mean, I know they're very questionable with the talent, but I can trust. I think I trust Kyler, and I know he's not looked great, but we have seen some flashes. I would trust Kyler a lot more to go into Buffalo in late November, whatever the case is, and compete with Josh Allen than I do Tua going in to. I mean, Tua's not going into Lumen Field or going to SoFi and being competitive against Darnold and Stafford. I don't see that happening.
He's not going in front of the 12s and beating Seattle, and he's not going into the Rams and beating the Rams, and he's not going into Santa Clara either and beating a healthy Niners defense. You're right. Kyler, the big thing to me, it's not necessarily the on-the-field performance. It's more just the health.
Yeah.
Tua, it's kind of both. Like, he hasn't played well. The interceptions are awful. And the health's a concern. Yeah. It's just a funny trade. It's really two teams dumping failed draft picks.
Basically.
That's really what it comes down to.
It's trading mediocre for mid. That's kind of all it is.
Yeah, it's just mid for mid. Yeah. I agree. I don't. Neither of them move me much. Like, I think both teams are probably in the same spot.
Yeah.
Very similar ceilings. Any other quarterbacks?
Only other one I have on here potentially is Geno Smith, but I think he stays with the Raiders. I don't think they start Mendoza from day one. So I think Geno maybe starts a few games, very, very short leash. Maybe 3 to 4, and then 3 to 4, if he stinks it up like a lot may think, then Mendoza takes over. I just don't see the point of moving Geno to sign another backup to mentor Mendoza. I think he stays.
Yeah. I don't know who's going to want to take on that contract either.
Yeah.
Unless if the Raiders are willing to pay it. Yeah, I mean, because your quarterback's outside of Kenny Pickett and Aiden O'Connell?
Yeah.
I mean, unless if you move on from Geno and you bring in like a Mariota, like a low-cost, cheap backup. But Mariota is not the worst.
He played some good football this past season.
Yeah, he's frisky and fun.
Yeah,
is that the category to put him
under?
Yeah,
that's probably the way to put him. Yeah, you're gonna get some Marcus Mariota, like the Oregon version of Marcus Mariota, and then you're gonna get the Stevie Wonder version of Marcus Mariota.
Yeah, he can run around a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
He spent some time with the Raiders already.
Yeah.
Yeah, I've always said this about a backup. If you could be a backup quarterback that can run around a little bit, and show, I think I've always enjoyed that as in a backup quarterback. If you can move, I think that's a good thing.
Yeah.
Like Taylor Heineke, he was at least somewhat entertaining. He can move a bit, use his legs. Because most likely, if you're playing a backup quarterback and you're a pocket passer, it's like you're not probably very good because you're obviously not the best passer if you're a backup. If you're a backup and you've got some mobility, you can at least be a little bit more of a dual threat. Keep defenses guessing a little bit more.
Yeah, that's why Diego Pavia
Geno
is going to be
Smith
such a great. Sorry, I did not mean to interrupt you there. That's why Diego Pavia is going to be such a great third string quarterback wherever he lands because he can move around a little bit.
Oh God, what a disgrace! If Diego Pavia is a Jet, I am burning every Jet apparel I have, and I'll do it on the show. I will burn everything I have.
Man, I'm actually intrigued to see. I'm
going to buy a Pavia jersey and burn it.
So, if Diego Pavia is the starter, week 1 for the Jets.
I will not.
What's your next team in line?
I'm just not going to watch football anymore. And I will not be on the show. You won't see me. I'm going to go into a darkness retreat.
Rodgers, he knows a lot about that.
Yeah. I'm going to go to Ayahuasca in the mountains of, I don't know, Costa Rica. Or wherever he was. Diego Pavia, man. I'm actually very much looking forward to Diego Pavia's NFL career. And I'm very much looking forward to it failing. That's another thing, too, is, like, I can't even get my head around rooting for him. Like, if he was a Jet, I think he's a terrible prospect. I don't think he's going to be any good. He's 5'9". He's going to get destroyed in the NFL. Plus his attitude, those are all real concerns. So I don't even want him as a prospect. But on top of the personality issues and just not liking him, like, if he was a Jet, I actually don't know if it'd be hard to root for him. They would do it. I'm telling you, they would be the dumb team to take a chance on him. They would do it. They were the team. They drafted Christian Hackenberg in the second round, never let the guy play. Instead, we were rolling Bryce Petty out there and kicking field goals down 40 against the Patriots.
Bryce Petty was a Baylor legend.
Yes, he was a Baylor legend. Not a Jets legend, that's for sure. I actually feel bad. I want to personally apologize to Bryce Petty because when we started playing Brady Cook, I said it's going to be like watching Bryce Petty. And I want to personally apologize. He made Bryce Petty look like, Joe Montana, Dan Marino, and Tom Brady. All in one. Brady Cook is just the worst quarterback I've ever seen in my entire life. And I've watched Tim Boyle.
And Zach Wilson.
Yes, and Zach Wilson. And Luke Falk. Saw Trevor Siemian snap his leg on Monday Night Football. It's a long list. Anyway, any closing thoughts?
Well, other than that, thank you guys for watching. We will be back next week as well. Everyone knows that we're now not Diego Pavia fans, so there's going to be a lot of Diego Pavia bashing throughout this offseason. But
Yes. Oh, there's going to be tons of Diego Pavia bashing.
but more news to come to you next week, so thank you guys for tuning in.
I can't wait to continue to bash Diego Pavia. It's funny. I think every offseason we go through some stretches of just bashing teams or bashing a player.
Yeah.
Like, we bashed New Orleans. We used to bash Carolina.
It was Carolina.
Charlotte. We used to bash the city of Charlotte.
Then it was Denver and Zach Wilson.
Yes. Then it was Denver. And Bo Nix there for a little while.
But
I said I'll stop watching football if Bo Nix beat the Jets. That was last season or 2024. And he beat the Jets that game with Rodgers.
Well, now, if you are watching, there's a history. There's a script. If you notice, we bashed Carolina. Carolina got good. They made the playoffs. We bashed Denver. Denver got to the AFC Championship.
Yes.
Whoever Diego Pavia ended up landing to will be a very good team. Not this season, but the next season.
Yes.
So just stay tuned.
Yeah, it's a good point. We do a calculated bashing. And it's a good thing if we bash your team because that means you're gonna have success.
That is real. Only team that is not is Pittsburgh, but it's gonna take a lot more for Pittsburgh.
Yeah,
it's not so simple with Pittsburgh.
No, it's not. I mean, they got to get out of the 1940s first. So, anyway, that'll do it. The Pittsburgh's got to realize that the games aren't put on tape recorders anymore. It's live TV.
We got color now. We got 65-inch TVs, and
you're allowed to pass.
Yeah, you can order
more than 10 yards.
They have this thing where you can order food on the app and they bring it to you. Life has changed from the last time that offense was good. So they just got to adjust.
Yep. You can win more than 10 games. That's allowed.
That is true. You can win a playoff game. That is allowed.
Yes, you are allowed to win a playoff game. All right, that'll do it. Another episode in the books. We'll be back next week. So stay tuned and talk to you then.